We have kind of a famous person in the house. Some of you have heard, seen What the Bleep many years ago, a couple years ago, several years ago, some years ago. And so we have with us today the co-author, the director, and the, I always say publisher, but it's not that, it's producer. And the producer, that's better than, oh, we won't go there again. I was having nightmares of tiramisu, but I don't need to go there again. I know I brought a lot of joy to your hearts last week. So here's the thing. We have a woman who is very accomplished in her life. And what I like most about her is that the understandings keep coming and coming. Many of you know that What the Bleep was about the quantum physics of consciousness. And it was deep. She's deep in such a delightful, joyful way. Please join me in welcoming Betsy Chasse. Betsy.
Wow, this was so much fun. Every time I speak at a Center for Spiritual Living or Center for Spiritual Awareness, I always think of my dad. My dad was a musician most of his life, and one of the things that he did to make money was that he was a choir director, but at a lot of different churches. And so my Sunday mornings, because I would go with him often, were spent at a Catholic church, a Baptist church, even sometimes synagogue. It was weird. He went everywhere. And I used to ask him, Dad, why, because, you know, I was like 8, I think, around then. I said, Dad, you know, I go to these places and all the songs kind of sound the same, and what they're saying kind of sounds the same. Why do we have all these different churches? Like, I don't understand that. And he said, well, maybe one day you'll figure it out, and maybe one day you'll find a place. And it's no accident that I sit and I look at this wall, and there it is, right? And it's just beautiful. I don't even know if they had a science of mind maybe like that back then. They probably did, but my dad sure would be proud of it, for sure. He'd be fun. He's like the big old roly-poly white guy with the black singers rocking out. I loved it. He ended his life, he passed in New Orleans, doing what he loved best, playing trombone and playing jazz. And so anyway, when I always get a little emotional because when you guys get up and sing, I think of my daddy. So the funny thing about spending my early childhood traveling from church to church to church was that I kind of got afraid of God. He freaked me out because at some of these places they were serious about this. Like if you were bad, you were going to hell in high water. And I, as a small child, remember a moment, I write about it in my book, when I was little and I was really mad at my sister because we had a cat and the cat had kittens in her room. And my sister told me all those kittens were hers. And I was not happy about that at all. And I was sitting there in church really cursing my sister. And I just wanted her to run away so I could have the cats, right? I kept thinking, like, if she leaves, then I get the cats. And I hear that when we have bad thoughts, we're going to go to hell. And so that was that moment where I said, oh, I don't like that guy. If he's going to put me in hell for that, God, what else have I thought of and done? And so I pretty much spent most of my childhood up into my 20s and almost my early 30s being anything but religious, spiritual, or interested in God. The only thought of consciousness I ever had was shoe consciousness, which is what kind of shoes I'm wearing. And I might have to just say here, this is my attempt at higher consciousness right here. And I have to say, I am impressed with the shoe consciousness in this church. Girls have some nice shoes here. I was like, look at those shoes. Somebody over there's got some black heels. Oh my God, I want those. So then what happens is I'm in the movie business, and I end up getting asked to make this movie called at the time it was called Sacred Science. We changed the name. About quantum physics. And I couldn't even spell quantum physics before I made this movie. I didn't even know what it was. And so it's a funny little story about how the least spiritual person on the planet gets asked to make what ends up being one of the most successful spiritual movies of all time. So, being that I'm a filmmaker in my heart, I like to make movies and I like to tell stories. I made a little movie about how that all happened, and I'm going to share it with you.
Ever hear the Buddhist expression, if you see the Buddha on the road, kill him? Yeah, me neither. I had it all. Or at least I thought I did. Until one day I realized I didn't. But who gives up a successful film career? Of course, it depends on how you define success. Actually, my film career was more like this. I was approaching 30-something. My mommy clock was ticking, and I just couldn't see myself being a Hollywood schlock queen and a PTA mom at the same time. I wanted more. I wanted money and happiness. Better yet, I wanted self-respect. So, I started making gourmet dog treats out of my kitchen. Sadly, that didn't work out either. My agent did what any Hollywood agent does with a client having an identity crisis. She dragged me to yoga class. Maybe I was in that headstand too long or something, but when she told us to go home and make a list of all the things we wanted in life, I did. I wanted money. I wanted love. I wanted happiness. I wanted a movie. I wanted a movie that would get me back in the game. I wanted a movie that would change my life. Take it from me. If some yogi tells you to make a list, be careful what you wish for. The movie that was going to save my Valley Girl ass sure didn't come from heaven.
This is really important, is that people think if I had money, I'd be happy. If I had the right relationship, I'd be happy. If I was successful, I'd be happy. It turns out that this is actually the wrong way.
The vibrational frequency you give off is what determines the kind of reality experience you have.
This, from me, comes from the field. However, it takes a degree of complexity for any entity to be conscious. Entity.
Happiness is important.
These guys had all the answers. Me? I was still trying to figure out what the damn questions were. Oh! Oh! Turns out, my life couldn't change until I changed.
It's actually your painting. It's made out of your paint.
And what we know about evolution is that crisis precedes transformation. Problems are evolutionary drivers.
Happiness is important, and if you're happy, you've got it.
I finally got it!
How many of you guys know that Zen koan, if you see the Buddha along the road, kill him or you'll follow him the rest of your life? That had a really profound effect on me, because one of the things that was interesting that happened after making the Bleep, I was used to making movies and taking them out into the world, but nobody really cared about the filmmaker. Usually they just cared about the movie. But when the Bleep came out, all of a sudden I was thrust into the guru status, opening up for Deepak Chopra, right? As if somehow I was now a spiritual leader because I had made this movie. And you know what the truth is? I really kind of like that. That was fun, right? Who doesn't want to open for Deepak, right? So I went about my life thinking that I had it all figured out and had great shoes to go with it, and got married and had babies. And Barbara Marx Hubbard says something in that piece. She says, crisis precedes transformation. It would be neat if we could do the transformation part without the crisis part, right? But don't we love a good crisis? We do. Come on, it's true. For the most part, in a lot of our lives, we learn that crisis is good. So for me, the crisis came in the fact that I had an identity crisis. The more and more I would go out and speak, the more and more I felt like a liar, because deep inside, I was really miserable. And I had a lot of questions about the spirituality stuff that wasn't quite getting answered. And so not only did I feel like a liar in terms of my career, but I also felt like my whole life was a lie. Because one of the things I think it's number 3 in your 4 tenets, rules, however you say that, is thought is creative, right? Thought manifests. I made an entire movie about that. You'd think I'd know that one down, right? What I realized was that my thoughts were creating a life that I did not want to live. That wasn't authentically me. And so my life completely blew up. I got divorced, went broke. I wish you could, the divorce part's fine, but the broke part, really? Do we have to do that too? Damn. So I lost everything except my kids. I kept them and I kept the dog. Everything else went. Car, house, the whole 9 yards. And I said to myself, okay, I really would like to do this right this time. And I had this realization that while I had made this great movie and I had lots of data, I had not integrated that data. And what was really profoundly shocking to me as I was raising children was that I realized we spend a lot of time teaching our children math. We spend a lot of time teaching them how to speak a horrible language that doesn't make sense half the time, English. We spend a lot of time on rules, but we never actually are taught how to think. Isn't that weird? We're given this brain. You're born, you have a brain and a body, and no one actually teaches you how to use them together to actually make thought manifest. Oh, I'm actually supposed to pay attention to what's going on in my head? I have control over those things? Nobody told me that. What? So I realized that if I wanted to create a new life, I didn't want to recreate the same one that I had. So how was I going to do that? So my book is called Tipping Sacred Cows. And a sacred cow is essentially a belief or an ideology that we hold up against criticism. We don't question it. It just is. The Bible, the Constitution, the Mets. Those are sacred cows. And I realized that I was carrying beliefs. I realized that what we are, if you think about how you work, your brain is essentially a belief attaching machine. That is all your brain does from second to moment, 400 billion bits of information popping into your brain second by second, right? And all you're doing is attaching a meaning to it. Oh, this is good, this is bad, this is tasty, whatever those meanings are, that is how your brain works. That is how you create memories. That is how you know how to walk and talk. That is how you know you like this neighbor, but you don't like that neighbor, all of it. And so once I realized that my entire life is a reflection of my beliefs. In the Bleep, one of the things that we talk about is the idea that you create your reality. And I'm a bit of a science nerd, even though I like shoes. And I was able to talk to many of the greatest scientists in the world. And I asked them, really, we really creating reality? And he, there's been lots of measurements and lots of cool studies, but essentially it breaks down to this. The truth is, we're not magically creating this piano right here. When you leave the building, the piano is still here. What you are creating is your perception of the piano. Do I like this piano? Do I not like the piano? Does it sound pretty? All of that is your beliefs. So what you're doing essentially as you're walking around in the world is you're perceiving the world based on your belief system. So if your belief system, like mine, which I finally came to realize was based on a belief system of I am unworthy in love, I am unworthy of success. Every time I started a business, and I did, by the way, I really started a gourmet dog treat business out of my kitchen. I'd never made a dog treat in my life. I have no idea why I did that, but it sounded fun. And you know what happened? I got into 400 stores across the United States. That's making gourmet dog treats, for God's sake. Out of my kitchen, no less. But you know what? It crashed and burned. Just like every other success I'd had, it crashes and burns. And I finally, in the moment of my divorce, another crash and burn, said, why does that keep happening? Because I believe that I'm not worthy of success. And if I'm not worthy of success, it doesn't matter what I do because my belief system will keep driving me towards failure. And this is what we do over and over and over again in every aspect of our life. So I wanted to fix that. So I began to examine my beliefs. And what I learned is, oh, I don't know how to think. So I had to go very back to the basics of really paying attention. And it's not hard, actually. We like to make it hard. The entire self-help industry, including my book, but I think my book is funny, so you could read it anyway just for that. But the whole industry is based on making this really complicated, okay? You've got to do these 5 steps. You've got to stand this way and meditate this way, or whatever those things are. If you don't wear this crystal, forget it. You're out, right? If you don't burn this incense on this time of day, you're done, right? That is all baloney. It's very, very simple, actually. You say it in the beginning of your service. It's this thing in here and how it works with this thing right here. And this working together, really powerful. But there's really only, and there's no 18 different steps. There's really only one step. And so I'm going to show you a little video. You guys, some of you might have seen it. Has anybody know Bob Newhart? You guys know Bob Newhart. Come on, he's fun. All right, so I'm going to show you. Now, this is it. This is basically the panacea. If you just did what this video tells you, you'll be amazed. Okay. I didn't make this video, but I'm borrowing it. You got it? My beloved is my tech. It's coming. Oh, there you go. I was going to say, I don't want to act it out. I might have to. I can. Sometimes we don't have the video, and so I do. I'll give it one more second. Okay, I'm going to act it out. Here we go. Bob Newhart is a therapist, right? Okay, in the scene. And he has a client come in, and he basically says to this client, here are the rules. My sessions are 5 minutes long. I only charge $5. I don't take change. I can guarantee you that after 5 minutes, whatever your problem is, I'm going to solve it. And the woman who's expecting some big, long therapy session to go on for months looks at him and like, well, okay, then I'll do that. So she sits down, and Bob Newhart says, please tell me what your problem is. And she says, oh, he's got it now. It's more fun when they do it. Oh, that's all right. We'll skip it, babe. It's almost, because YouTube is going to be weird. So she says, I'm afraid of being buried in a box. And Bob Newhart looks at her and he's like, well, has anybody ever tried to bury you in a box? And she says, well, no one actually has, but I have, it's like I feel frightened of boxes and elevators and houses. And he goes, oh, you're claustrophobic. And she says, yeah, I'm claustrophobic. And Bob Newhart looks at her and says, all right, listen, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. It's 2 words. You can write it down if you want. But I guarantee you, if you do these 2 words, you follow these 2 words, you'll no longer be afraid that someone's going to bury you in a box. And essentially, this is it. He looks at her, and she says, well, okay, I'm ready. He goes, are you ready? And she says, yes. And he looks at her, and he goes, stop it. Like, really, how much thousands of dollars have we spent on therapy and self-help? And it's really, stop it. Oh, stop it. So when I go into a room and I go, oh, I'm not looking very skinny and this isn't happening, I just go, oh, brain, stop it. Shush. And that's it. It's really that simple. I mean, I made a nice movie about the quantum physics and the molecular science and the neuroscience around all of that, but really that's it. It's called interrupting your behavior. And the only way to do that is to pay attention to what you think, to be consciously aware of the thoughts that you're having so that you can be in charge of those thoughts so that then you can create and manifest into the world that which you truly want. Not what you don't want. Mind-blowing, I know. Would have been a lot easier if they told us that when we were like 3, right? But somehow we get caught in this pattern. One of the reasons that we get caught, one of the other realizations that I had when I was sort of in my dark night of the soul after my divorce, trying to figure out what is it that I'm trying to do with my life? What do I want? How do I feed these children? There's not a lot of job listings for Girl Who Made Bleep, by the way. So I have this wonderful friend, a teacher of mine. His name is Francis Rico, and I was interviewing him for a project, and we were having this whole deep conversation about the meaning of life. And he looks at me and he says, you know, the biggest issue that most of us have is that we're terrible communicators. And he said, Betsy, you're a really bad communicator. And I went, wait a minute, I'm a storyteller. I'm supposed to be good at this. And he said, no. Most of us are very bad at communicating. He calls the English language kerplunk. And I think that's true. And I said, why do you think that? And he said, well, you think about it. In many of the romantic languages, you know, there's 100 words for the word love. But in English, there's just love. That's it. And he said, you know, we've lost our ability to communicate through intention, to really listen. And like you were saying at the beginning of the service, that most people, when they're coming at you, they're to call for love. But we forget that. And the reason that we forget that is because we're really bad communicators. Let me give you an example of this. My beloved and I have been together for a while, and my book was coming out last year, and I believe it or not, I'm not a big shopper. I know that's hard to believe. I like shopping for shoes, but dresses and things, it's not my favorite thing. So I went out, spent all day, picked this dress, came home, put the dress on, and showed it to my honey, and just got out there and went, okay, what do you think? And the first thing he does is laughs. And then he says to me, wow, I like the whole cow thing you have going on there. Okay. So, in my I'm not beautiful, I'm short and chubby, I'll never be gorgeous, I'll never be a model brain, I think he just called me a cow. Okay, I am ripping this dress off, I'm going into the bathroom, I'm going to cry for the next 16 hours, forget it, I'll never come out, right? That's what I could do. But then I remembered something that I had learned. It's a crazy concept, but if you can try this concept along with your stop it, it's life-altering. Because what I remembered was, this person loves me. This person cares about me. They do not actually want to hurt me. The funny thing is, most people in the world don't actually want to hurt you. They're looking for love, just like you're looking for love. We're just terrible communicators. And so in that moment, I did something that has become a practice for me as much as I can. I looked at him and I asked him a question. I said, Brian, I don't really understand what you meant. Can you explain that again? And he laughed and he said, babe, the dress, it's black and white. It's got a black and white print. Your book, it's called Tipping Sacred Cows. You have a whole cow theme happening. It's quite clever. So in my, I'm not ever going to be beautiful in a dress, and I'm not smart enough to have written a book, I almost missed that I'm beautiful and clever. Right? Imagine what would happen in your life if you listened like that. If you listened from stopping and asking yourself, does this person really want to hurt me? And what are they really trying to say to me? And how can I hear them and give them back love and authenticity? It's really simple. So there's two things: communication and conscious thought. It's really that simple. I want to share with you something, if we can, because I think you guys would really like it. I didn't share this in the other one, but I have a minute, and I think it's going to pretty much blow your mind. Last year, I made a film called Song of the New Earth. I was a producer on a film called Song of the New Earth. And in my quest for understanding how all things work, one of the wonderful things that I was exposed to was, as I was thinking about the idea of listening, is that, we're all frequency. And when you start to listen to people's frequency or their energy, you hear so much more. I hear so much more when I'm dealing with someone than I hear from their words, right? And so there's this beautiful film directed by a gentleman named Ward Serrell. Do you have it up, baby? Can we watch it? So I wanted to share this trailer with you because you do the sacred cinema, and I think it would just be something. So it's called Song of the New Earth, and this is the trailer.
I never know when the whales are going to show up, but the whale sounds come through me.
My mother was a circus elephant rider. In between the acts, the big band would play and she'd sing, so that's where my voice came from. Spirits can come through my voice. Sometimes I'm like a chauffeur and I look in the back seat to see who I'm driving at the moment. I'm a neo-pagan, Taoist, Tibetan, Buddhist, quantum physicist, mystic, all rolled into some strange amalgam. The morning of my 40th birthday, I had an encounter that was totally unexpected. Will you sing the song of the new earth? They said they came from another universe. They said to me, we're going to take you through a major initiation. I said, well, you're going to have to take me to the mat. I'm not going to participate with you. I'm not even going to freaking meditate this morning. And a hole opened up underneath me. And this voice said, now it is time.
He's opened doors I never even imagined.
That was the first time my brain state had been altered by sound.
My earth went from flat to round.
The brain research shows that when you are experiencing pure sound without language, the right side of the brain lights up like a Christmas tree.
Sound opens consciousness. If consciousness is higher, the planet will change.
We're creating the world by how we speak to each other, the words we choose, the tonality that we choose. The entire human collective is in our dark night of the soul right now. A knowledge and an intelligence will sing through my voice, and new solutions will come forward for us to change the course of our history. The ancient traditions, they all speak to it, from the smallest subatomic particle to the largest galaxies. It began with sound.
So, he says in there we're impacting the world by how we speak to each other. I also realized for myself that I was really have an impact on how I'm listening to each other. So it's kind of a two-way thing. It's not just what I put out, but what I bring in to my thoughts and to my mind, being in charge, being aware of those, and stopping them when they're not serving me. Being clear on what is it that I believe about the world, about love, about relationship, and how am I manifesting those beliefs out into my life. And so it's very clear when your quote for the day was about changing consciousness. That's exactly it. Typically, I've realized when I'm in a moment where something's bothering me or making me mad or frustrated or whatever it is, all I really have to do is look at me and ask myself, what is it that I believe that is creating this anger within me? So I have with me that movie. I have the movie plus 2 hours of additional meditations by Tom Kenyon on the DVD. And then I have What the Bleep, the regular one. I have a few What the Bleep Do We Know, the extended version, which has got the 5 hours of additional footage. And I have my book here if anybody would like to purchase them and have me sign them. I'm happy to do that. And I'm just really honored to have been here today. Thank you very much.